Hey guys, so I've had several questions on Instagram about how I'm moving the cruise control and menu function buttons off the steering wheel down into the center console. My plan is here right now, the steering wheel harness plugs into this clear 6-pin connection here in the picture. This is the top half of the clock spring that I took off the car. This actually sets in here. Before you take this apart, make sure that you tape this clock spring in place so that it can't spin when you've got it out of here. But when it comes apart, there's just several tabs around here that you pull loose, and this will pop off of here. And then this panel here is on there like that, and there's 3 screws here, 3 little screws that you take out here, and this comes off. And then here is the circuit board. And kind of to explain what I'm doing here, these 6 wires here that plug into here, they go through this ribbon cable around the clock spring, and they come back out here on the bottom in this 6-pin, which in turn, what that actually does is it goes through, it passes through here and into this white connection here. And then after that, it's processed in the circuit board here and comes back out the other end. But the problem is these wires in these pins down here are something totally different once they go through this circuit board, so you can't tap right into these wires here to connect that. My plan is to drill a hole in the bottom of this housing here and connect the wires right here where they usually would otherwise, which in turn bypasses the clock spring completely and gets the wires on the right side of the steering wheel, because you can run the wires from this half of the clock spring to wherever you want to hook it up, without worrying about whether or not they're going to get twisted up when you're turning the wheel. So a little more on this conversion. As you see, I've cut the housing off that went around these prongs. That's so I can actually cut these prongs off completely and get them out of the way and make the room for the next plug. Also on this plate here, then I will have to cut this provision out so that this is an open hole, basically to get rid of this down here completely, also to make room. And then I'm going to get online and order a plug. I'm going to order the male plug that matches this white one with the 6 wires coming out of it. And that is then in turn where I will tap on the wires to run down to the steering wheel harness and connect. Essentially this plug will end up getting cut off, and these 6 wires will get wired to the wires that run out of here. Alright guys, I want to bring you a quick update. As you see here, I have temporarily shoved some wires in the end of this connector on the steering wheel harness and shoved them in this white connector here. Up here on the dash you will see, in fact, the cruise does come on and go back off, as well as soon as the menu goes, I can scroll through the menus up here with the buttons relocated on this plate. As you see, I've got plenty of wire here, way more than I'm ever going to need, so there's no reason that this shouldn't still work once I shorten these wires up to put it back down here in the center console. Obviously the set, resume, and cancel buttons don't do anything right now, but that's obviously because the car's sitting still. But like I said, the menu buttons are scrolling. Both of them work just the way they're supposed to. My phone buttons haven't worked for a long time because I have an aftermarket radio, but the cruise does come on and off. So once I get the connector in the mail for here, there should be no reason that I can't drill a hole in the back of this and tap these buttons into this white connector here and eliminate the ribbon cable in the clock spring completely. So it's been a few days since we've been out here working on this. We were waiting on this connector set here to come in, and I'll put on the screen here I'll write down the description of these connectors. But essentially what I was looking for is this right here. It as you see, it's got 6 pins in there, and then pins out here where you can either obviously solder to a board, or we're going to solder wires to these 6 pins. But this here actually mates to this connector on the board. Essentially here we've already soldered the 6 wires. I just bought a pack of 8 multicolor 22/0 gauge wire. We've soldered it and then heat shrinked each one of them. We'll have to straighten these back out from the heat, but then they go down here. I haven't decided yet. I ordered a waterproof 6-pin plug to connect to the steering wheel harness where this plug here was, but I may actually use these here and made it together, so I can go ahead and put it back together today. But I will come back to it when we get a little farther in this. Now you can see I have carefully bent the wires around. I have that plugged into the circuit board. The wires ran out, and then I taped them down here just so they can't get pulled on. And I also popped this middle cover back on here. And we're moving along. So I've done a little bit of testing. I put this back in the car. Everything still works just fine. All the buttons function. Even with this 5 feet of wire on here, which obviously we're only going to be, I don't know, somewhere around 30 inches maybe to the center console, if that even. Something else I did discover here on the steering, this is the harness out of the steering wheel behind here, and these 2 leads here are your horn buttons. I did do some testing. It doesn't take any special button. Anytime these 2 leads here are touched together, the horn does go off. So I think I'm going to go a step further. At first I was going to just say the heck with the horn, but I think I'm going to go a step further and run 2 additional wires from this plug here back to these leads here. I've already cut them all off, but as you see, I've put a half moon in here. If it'll focus, I put a half moon in here so I have access to the center 2 leads. I think I'm going to solder a couple wires on there, and essentially what that will do, that will back feed the horn back through the clock spring, and then I can use this, and I can use these center 2 wires on here. Then I can plug this back in here. I can use the center 2 wires then to hook the NRG horn button up to, and that will allow the NRG horn button to run through here, come out the wires that I solder on these center leads down here, and then they will run all the way back to this plug here on the steering wheel harness in the center console. That way the horn can continue to run through the cruise control module, just like it did from the factory, and we'll be able to retain a horn that way also, with it just a little extra work. I mean, essentially this clock spring is never going to be able to go back to the way it was from the factory once you modify it anyways. So I decided just to go the step further and see if I could keep a horn that way also. Hey guys, just want to bring a quick ending to this video. As you see, the buttons are in place in their new home. All the wires are hooked up. Again, like I told you, I backfed 2 wires back through the clock spring ribbon cable so that I can hook the horn up. And as you see, when you touch them together, the horn does go off. So they'll be able to be hooked to the NRG button on the wheel, so the horn will still function. Also want to show you here, you turn the cruise on, the cruise comes on, goes back off, and also just like before, I can scroll through all the menu from down here on the console, So it looks like it's going to work. The only buttons I can't touch are the cancel, resume, and set buttons, because the wheel's not here yet, so I can't finish it today. But I'm assuming they probably won't kick on just because the car's not moving. They usually won't. But with the cruise coming on and off, I don't know why the other 3 buttons wouldn't still work. So if you like this video and the content that we put out, please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you.